Hey there everybody, it's Linnea here for ThermOWeb, and I'm really excited about this ThermOWeb collaboration. So we are collaborating with Blot Shop, and I'm going to be using a bunch of Blot Shop stamps and stencils along with some ThermOWeb products. And this whole video is going to be showing you 3 different ways to foil. So I'm going to get started with one of this is probably the more complicated, and none of them are complicated, but this one has some masking and stenciling going on. So I have the Blot Shop Superhero Bursts and Wild Hatch Herringbone stencils. I'm going to spray the backs of them with some pixie spray, and I'm actually using the negative pieces of that Superhero Burst stencil. The positive piece will allow you to add color to those burst pieces, but I wanted to use these pieces for masking. So I sprayed all 3 of those pieces with some pixie spray, and now I'm just going to position them on my A2 card base where I think I want them to be. I'll give them a little bit of a press, and then I'm going to place that Wild Hatch Herringbone stencil from Blot Shop over the top of my paper along with those masks. I'm going to flip over my cardstock and just use my brayer to press this on. This Wild Hatch Herringbone is a finer detail stencil, and I have that excess lift underneath there because of that stencil piece that I have for my masking pieces. I'm using Deco Foil Transfer Gel Blanco for my stenciling, but you could use this with Duo Gel. My other 2 methods of foiling required a laminator, and so since I was going to have my laminator out anyway, I figured I might as well just go with the Blanco gel. It dries a little bit faster where I live, so that's why I chose to go with that. I'm using my stencil pal and just spreading that Deco Foil Transfer Gel Blanco over that stencil. Now, keep in mind that because I have that excess lift from those masking stencils, I'm not going to get perfect stenciling results. And I'm okay with that because I like the look of this Wild Hatch Herringbone stencil, and I was thinking that even if I didn't get perfect stenciling, especially right around where those masks are, it's okay because this is such a whimsical background design. I'm going to just kind of clean up my work surface a little bit here, just quickly with a baby wipe so that I can lay that panel back down. And then I'm going to come in with an X-Acto knife and just kind of lift up those stencil masks and get those out of the way. I don't want those to dry on my cardstock. You could use any kind of flat, pointy tool for this. I just happen to have this X-Acto knife handy, so that's what I used. But if you use a knife, do be careful. You don't want to cut your fingers and ruin your pretty background or your fingers. So here's my background when it's wet, and now here it is dry. The Blanco gel appears the same. The color doesn't change at all, but you'll know it's dry when the back of your cardstock feels normal temperature-wise. If the back of your cardstock feels cool, your Blanco gel is not yet dry, and so you want to let that go a little bit. I'm using Rainbow Shattered Glass Deco Foil for my foiling. I wanted to use something that was going to be bright and colorful and give me a gradient effect. So I have some Deco Foil parchment paper as my carrier sheet. I ran that through my laminator, and here is the grand reveal. Now you can see where those masks were. The stenciling is not perfect, but I don't think anybody's going to care because this background is so pretty. Now I did have some foil stick to where I didn't want it to. My pixie spray must not have been completely dry. That's okay. All I do is go in with a sand eraser and just quickly sand that away. So that's background number 1 with way to foil number 1, and that is with a transfer gel. Here's the second way to foil, and that's with a toner sheet. So I have a toner sheet. This is one of the Brutus Monroe Really Radiant Toner Card Front Mixables, and I have the Teacher Greetings stamp set from Blot Shop, and when I saw these numbers on the background of this Brutus Monroe toner sheet, I thought that would pair together perfectly. So I have some Deco Foil glass slipper foil. I was sure to wipe off my toner sheet so that I could remove any dust or fingerprints, oils, anything like that that were on my toner sheet, and ran that through my laminator. And there you go, second background, nice and easy. Now this third way to foil is one of my favorites that I haven't really used a lot. This is Deco Foil Magenta Foil, and this is a satin-based foil, a satin finish rather. Super pretty. All I did was cut down a Deco Foil toner sheet, completely black. It is fully printed with toner, and so anywhere where that black is, and in this case the whole thing, when you run this through your laminator, you are going to have a pretty foil background. And because I use that magenta, which is a satin finish, it almost looks like one of those fancy foil cardstocks that you could buy, except you can completely customize the color using any of the Deco foils that you have in your stash. So there are 3 quick and easy ways to add foil to your projects, using a transfer gel, using a toner sheet, and then a full background too. So let's go ahead and turn these 3 backgrounds into cards. I'm going to start with the background I created last, and this is with my full foiled background. I'm using my XL tape runner from ThermOWeb, and I'm just going to place some of that adhesive on the back there. And I am using the Ink Blot Shop Starry Sprinkle background stamp. I love this background stamp. I think it can be used for so many different kinds of backgrounds, but this one reminded me of outer space. And I also have the Scribble Circle stamp set from Ink Blot Shop, which you'll see in a minute, and it reminded me of a planet, like an abstract planet. So I thought, how fun would it be to heat emboss this Starry Sprinkle background onto my full foil background? And it turns out so great. You do want to make sure when you are heat embossing on foil that you use a generous amount of your anti-static powder tool, whatever brand you have. Add a generous amount of that powder and then ink it up with a watermark ink really good. I'm going to re-ink here, and then I just sprinkled on some white embossing powder. Now my fingerprints are going to stick onto this foil because the foil is a slick surface, and so anywhere where you have oils or anything, which you have natural oils in your fingertips, it's going to stick onto the foil, or it's going to cause your embossing powder to stick rather. That's okay. I'm going to give it a good flick from the back and knock off all of those excess particles, but I still have some pieces. You can see I have a huge blob right in the middle of my card, and that is from where I pushed too hard on my stamp, so my stamp kind of pressed onto my background. I'm just going to go in with a dry paintbrush and dust away, I guess is a good way to say it, dust away any of those excess heat embossing particles or embossing powder particles. Now is for the actual heat embossing. You want to make sure to get your heat gun good and hot. You want this ready to go when you bring this to your foiled background. You can see here I am keeping my heat gun moving the entire time. It does not take long for the heat embossing powder to heat set on foil because it's not a very thick surface for the heat to go through. And if you hold your heat gun in place for too long, it's going to warp or change the integrity of the foil. It gives a very cool effect, but not one that I wanted for today. I still wanted to have that shiny foiled background. So here's that Scribble Circle stamp set that I was talking about. And I love this stamp set because it could easily be a flower. It could be just a regular scribble background. But in my mind, I thought it looked kind of like a planet, especially when I pair it with that Starry Sprinkle background. So I stamped that with some green inks. I kept the ink darker towards the center and lighter towards the outside. And I also have a sentiment that I stamped in black from the Ink Blot Shop Greetings to You stamp set. And I'm going to use my scissors and fussy cut out both of those pieces, both that big circle and my sentiment. I want to pop them up just for a little bit of dimension. So I grabbed my iCraft 3D Jumbo Foam Tape. This is the white foam tape in the 1/16 inch thickness. I like using the 1/16 inch thickness because it's just enough lift to give some gorgeous dimension, but there's no problems with this going through the mail. So I added that onto the back of that little Scribble Circle planet, and I hung that off the side of my card. I'm just going to use my scissors to trim that away. And then I will pop up that Just For You sentiment. And here is my fun, full foiled background planet card. Now for this toner sheet background, I am actually going to make this a 2-for-1 card. So 3 techniques shown in this video, but I'm going to end up with 4 cards. I took that toner sheet and I chopped it so that I had a piece that was about 2/3 of the toner sheet and about 1/3. There was no measuring involved. It was all just eyeballing. I used my iCraft Ultra Bond liquid adhesive pen and I adhered those toner sheets onto my card. I put the bigger piece towards the top of one and the smaller piece towards the bottom of the other. And then I'm grabbing a piece of aqua or pool colored cardstock and I just trimmed, it's probably about 1/8 of an inch. Again, I didn't measure, I just trimmed some little strips. And I'm going to use this as a border just to give a little break to the design. I used my Ultra Bond liquid adhesive pen again to add just a tiny bit of adhesive, and I'm going to grab a sentiment from the Spaced Out Greeting stamp set, as well as from that Teacher Greeting stamp set. I'm going to kind of pair these two together. So I will stamp my sentiment on top of my one toner sheet panel and on the bottom of the other. I'm going to use a stamping platform so that I can easily get these stamped together, ink them up, and I went with a black ink. I almost went with a pool ink because of that glass slipper Deco Foil background and then the pool color cardstock. In fact, on the first card I did stamp it in blue first, and I ended up stamping over it with black. I don't know what it is, I just love a black sentiment. Okay, so let's move on to our last card, which is actually the first background that we made. I wanted to use those masking pieces from the Superhero Burst stencil because of this Funny Faces stamp set. I thought, how cute would it be having these faces kind of peek out from a foiled background? So I grabbed 3 different faces from that Funny Faces stamp set, and I'm going to ink them up with black ink and stamp them in each of those masked areas. Once I have them stamped, I'm going to grab a purple gel pen from Ink Blot Shop, and I'm just going to go around and outline those burst masked shapes. I thought that they were kind of blending in a little bit too much, and I wanted to really define the edges and make it look like those faces were peeking out from that foiled background. And I love this purple gel pen. It worked perfectly and it matches perfectly with that rainbow shattered glass background. So I went around all of those edges and just outlined that, and I think that makes it pop a little bit more. I added some red to the lips of that face on the bottom, and now I'm just going to go in with some googly eyes and give these little faces a little bit of character. I thought the Google eyes were such a fun touch. And then I added some stamped greetings from the Spaced Out Greetings stamp set, and they just say, "Hello, miss you, hugs." This one was probably my favorite card. It's so just cute and punny, I think. So here are all of the cards that I made. 3 different techniques, but 4 cards, and they all came together super easily. I hope that you enjoyed these foiling techniques. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you again soon. And a huge thank you to Ink Blot Shop for collaborating with ThermOWeb this week. Thanks for watching. Bye.